So at this point, I'm gonna start making the shape a bit more interesting. So far, we're just working with thin sheets of geometry, and let's start giving it a bit more three-dimensionality. So I'm gonna go with start with an unpack, of course. We can't do much with pack geometry, so if you hit the mouse button, you'll see pack fragments 128. So there's not much geometry for us to work with. So we need to unpack this. Let's go to an interesting frame, something like this. It's very random. Okay, unpack. As you unpack, you'll see now we have a lot more points to work with, and it'll be an interesting thing to assign. So I'll start with the poly extrude. And let's start by, let's go actually here. Let's start at this level. And so it's faster. I don't think we're going to be seeing much of a difference. So let's say that this one, we're just going to be doing a very small inset. 0.001, and let's not output front. Okay, so now we just have this thin structure, and I just want to make sure we give it some thickness as well. Let's 0.002. So now we have some thickness in there. And let's make sure we output back as well. Okay, just each one of the faces now has become just a very thin frame. Let's maybe make it slightly thicker. Yeah, I think this will be cool. Not this. Let's have a look at this. So, and we'll also have something slightly different on the other side. Well, we have poly extrude. Same amount of inset, but in this case, I'm not interested. I'm just interested in the front and not the side. Okay, so we get these smaller, thin shapes. And let's give thickness to this, maybe not as much, 0.001. And if we combine both, merge, let's actually give it some different color. Let's say this is kind of this color. And here I'm gonna go with this color. Let's combine. Interesting shape, I think. Let's switch the background to something more in the middle. Background, gray. I don't use gray that often, but I think at this time could make sense. Maybe even add a light, something I also tend to not use that often either, but let's, I don't know, put a light here, area light. Okay, now that we have light, maybe switch this back to dark. Could it be that it is now a bit more interesting with light on? Even more detail on the light, let's say maybe 4, 2. Okay, I think we have a nice visualization conditions. Some intersections happening there. You notice at times they kind of cross each other. If you don't want that to happen, you can most likely you should be able to control that if you don't have this offset. Remember, on the attribute noise, we were using this offset. If we don't use this offset, or if we just multiply it by 0, we may get away. No, probably not, because of the rotation that we're applying it in here. So it's going to be different for each one. So yeah, we would have to kind of figure out a way of controlling the distance between one and the other, or increase it, or here on the copy, make the distance a bit wider, 0.85. This might be enough for them to not to intersect ever. Okay, so this could be an option. Let's put this back at 100 and 100. Okay, so we have some three-dimensionality applied to this. Other things that will definitely be useful for us to kind of render this with motion blur, for instance, is you definitely need to calculate your velocities. So if you want, you can just use a point velocity at this stage where you have less geometry, and then everything else will inherit that value, but it'll be faster for Houdini to calculate. Let's evaluate within frame range, and we should have velocities now that will be clearly visible on the viewport. Another thing that you can do to make your life easier in the future when you want to assign materials is just create groups instead of colors. So here we could kind of create a group, call this frames, and here blades, lenses, sheets. What can I call it? Plates. Why not? Okay. So here we have our complete artifact. It's not able to play it real time at this point, but if you want to see it in real time, just have a look at it here. It's easy enough for it to play real time, this one. You can have a lot of layers, of course. You can kind of go crazy on this. I don't know. It starts to get very, very dense, but it is something you can do. I think it looks cool. Yeah. 7. Let's go with 8. It's more a prettier number. Yeah. Okay, if you want to put something in the middle, as we do, I think 8 is probably too much. I'd go to 4. So we do have some room. Because remember, when it's packed together with a scale of 0.85, we won't get a lot of room inside anymore. If you're wondering if that's true, you can always just apply a clip. It's not easy to visualize this with just, let's say, after the impact. And let's invert. Okay, so we do have some room still. We still have some room. Not too much, but also an interesting effect to have as they kind of come in. I think it's cool. It's an interesting texture to have, definitely. Yeah. So as you can see, we're going to be wanting to put something in the middle, so we need this room for sure. Okay, so we have our complete artifact, and I'm just going to remove this or turn it off. Let's zoom in on it. And something's happened. Everything's fine here and here. When I merge, it's not fine at all. Why is that? Let's delete. And it was something wrong with that merge. Doesn't matter. So it's, I would say, pretty complete at this point. And the next step is going to be for us to work on the core.